Hey there, have you ever tried to learn English as an adult and just felt like you were hitting a brick wall? Well, you're not alone. We're going to break down a really powerful framework that totally flips the script on how we've always been taught languages. This is all about a new path to fluency, so let's dive right in.
So, let's just get right to the heart of it. Why does it feel so impossible sometimes? You know you're smart, you're motivated, but for some reason, trying to memorize verb tables just doesn't stick. Not like it does for your 5-year-old nephew, right? Well, there's a really simple reason for that. You're not a child anymore. And this right here, this comparison is the absolute core of the issue. Kids are basically little sponges, They've got all the time in the world, they learn by playing, and they just soak everything up. But for us, as adults, the whole game is different. We come to the table with a lifetime of experience, our time is super limited, and maybe most importantly, we need a reason, a purpose. We have to see how what we're learning is going to help us, tomorrow. Which brings us to our first huge idea. We just can't keep treating adult learners like they're just big kids. It doesn't work. We need a totally new philosophy, one that's designed from the ground up for the adult brain. And that philosophy actually has a name. It's called Andragogy. You've probably heard of pedagogy. That's the art and science of teaching kids. Well, Andragogy is its counterpart for adults, and it's all built around one central idea. We are self-directed, goal-oriented people who need to know why we're learning something. So what does that actually look like in practice? Well, it means that an adult's life experience isn't something to ignore. It's a valuable resource you bring into the classroom. It means treating learners like the capable, self-directed people they are. And this is the big one. It means every single lesson has to have a clear, real-world goal that you can use right away. This right here, this is the question that's constantly running through an adult learner's mind. What's in it for me? Learning a grammar rule about the simple past tense feels abstract and kind of useless. But learning how to write an email to your kid's teacher or talk to your doctor, that is a tangible, life-changing skill. The motivation is baked right in. Okay, so we've got the philosophy down, but how do we actually teach the language? Well, if we're not using the old methods, we need a different way to build the language itself. So forget about complicated blueprints. Think of it more like snapping together ready-made building blocks. Do you remember this from school? The teacher's up at the front of the room explaining some rule like the third-person singular simple present verb form. Ugh, your eyes just glaze over. It's so complicated, so abstract, and it puts this massive load on your brain just to understand the rule, let alone actually use it in a sentence. It's super confusing, and what we now know is that this old way of teaching, tackling grammar first, actually slows you down. It gets in the way of you becoming a confident speaker. There's gotta be a better way. And there is. This is the light bulb moment. The old way, the blueprint, is about declarative knowledge. That's just knowing about the language. The new way, the building block, or lexical approach, is all about procedural knowledge, knowing how to use the language. So instead of studying endless verb charts, you just learn the whole phrase, the whole chunk. She works at the factory. And you can use it right now. So you might be thinking, how do you learn these big building blocks without just getting totally overwhelmed? Well, the key technique is something called instructional scaffolding. The best way to think about it is like training wheels on a bike. It's temporary support that helps you do something you can't quite do on your own yet. And this shows you exactly what that journey looks like. At the very beginning, you get a ton of support. The teacher might use pictures, model the language for you, and teach you the key words beforehand. Then, as you start to get the hang of it, they slowly remove those supports. Maybe you work with a partner, using a template. And then finally, the training wheels come off. And boom, you're doing it all on your own, and you're doing it with confidence. This leads us to the content. Okay, we have a philosophy and a method. But what are we actually learning? This approach is all about prioritizing what you need to survive and function in the real world, starting today. Let's be super clear about the goal here. It is not to master the entire vast English language in a few weeks. The goal is to achieve rapid, functional literacy. And what that means is focusing like a laser on the most common, high-frequency words and phrases that you can put into action the second you walk out the door. Here's a perfect example. This isn't 4 separate words. No, this is a single, powerful tool you can use to go shopping. It's taught as one complete survival chunk. And another one. You don't need a grammar lesson on prepositions. You just need to know that if you say this exact phrase, you'll get the information you need to get where you're going. It's all about immediate results. And this really drives home just how critical this is. In a real emergency, you don't have time to think about verb conjugations. You need a prepackaged, ready-to-go phrase that gets your essential point across fast. That's what functional literacy is all about.
All right, now for an idea that's a little counterintuitive, and it might even surprise you, this whole framework argues that your native language isn't a crutch you should avoid. Actually, it's a secret weapon that you can use strategically.
For decades, the big rule in language classes was English only, right? But it turns out that can actually backfire. It makes people more anxious, and it can really slow down your understanding of tricky ideas. The new model sees your first language, your L1, as a powerful resource to speed things up.
Now, we're not talking about translating everything. No way. We're talking about being smart about it. You use your native language for just a few key moments, like explaining complicated instructions or clarifying a really abstract concept. Doing that saves a ton of time and confusion, which means you get to spend more of the class actually practicing your English.
So let's tie all these different threads together. We've got our philosophy, we've got our method, our curriculum, and our secret weapon. How does this all fit together into one big picture? This chart really gives us a great snapshot. It's a whole system that works together. The philosophy of andragogy, respecting the adult learner, that's the foundation. The lexical chunks and scaffolding, those are the engine that drives the learning. And then the survival focus and the smart use of your native language, that's the fuel that makes the engine run efficiently and get you where you need to go, fast. And look, if you only take away one thing from all of this, let it be this right here. The entire shift in thinking is simple. We need to move away from the old, stressful goal of trying to be grammatically perfect. The new goal is something way more achievable and a heck of a lot more useful. Confident, functional communication.
So, I'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. What if we've been looking for the key in the wrong place this whole time? Maybe learning a new language as an adult isn't really an academic exercise you find in some dusty textbook. Maybe it's about being handed the right toolkit, practical tools, effective tools, empowering tools, to go out and build yourself a new life.